for organizing our speaker tonight. And then let me introduce our speaker, Riaan Oberholzer, who's just done this amazing trip up to Angola. You can see it sitting there on the shared screen. And I think, Riaan, it's, I'll let you introduce yourself, but it looks like an amazing trip, but I think it's also incredibly brave to agree to do this online. So it's a first for ESA. I think it's a first, I don't know if it's a first for you, but a warm welcome to you. So even though you've got your mute on, everybody, we'll raise a glass and give you a warm round of clap.
Thank you very much, and the committee, and Chris also for inviting me for presenting the talk tonight. Yeah, I think my nerves and Chris's nerves are shattered now because we struggled to, like 10 minutes before the time, we still struggled to get online here and get everything set up. So yeah, but thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to share the trip with you guys. This trip was done in December 2019, so last year, December, over Christmas, New Year period. And it was basically myself, my wife, and my daughter and my son. A solo trip, about 9,000 kilometers, of which 4,000 kilometers was basically just from Johannesburg all the way. The route we followed was through the Kalahari Transfrontier Highway all the way to Windhoek. And we went around the Etosha Park into Ruacana, and that's where we entered Angola. We did the whole trip around and then exited and came around through to Etosha and all the way back another 2,000 Ks. So basically 2,000 Ks of this 9,000 Ks, or 4,000 Ks, was on tar. Easy driving. We did it about 1,000 Ks a day. First going in up to Windhoek the first day, and then from there up to Ruacana. And then on day 3 only did we enter Angola. I think let's get to the next point here. Sorry, Chris, I'm just trying to switch between my slides. As you say, this is always a challenge with the technical side of... there we go. So there's the crew. Myself, my wife, Layla and Adrian.
Hang on, Riaan.
Yes.
We can't see your slides, so you need to take over the screen like you did before.
I can see your slides, Riaan.
Yeah, it is sharing, hey? Chris, confirm.
I can see your slides.
Okay.
No, we can see them.
Okay, now I can. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, there's bit. Yeah, latency on the network was always a bit of a challenge. So I'll wait a couple of seconds before I continue with my slides. So yeah, there you can see that's the whole family. We've been overlanding for myself and my wife for the past 22 years now. We love packing the vehicle, tents, and just going north or to any isolated place where there's virtually no cell phone signal connectivity, resources, anything like that. We just love getting to the bush and you know, enjoying what it offers us. So we got married and then had the kids, and we waited for about 2 years until Adrian was about 1 year and 8 months old. That's when we started introducing them to overlanding. And ever since that, the past 18 years now, we've been traveling with them all across Southern Africa, visiting Namibia, Botswana, Zambia. We did a trip to Malawi, Mozambique. And Angola has always been one of our biggest places we wanted to go and visit. We did our first trip up to the border of Angola about 10 years ago. And, you know, we sat at the border post there at Ruacana, and it was still, the war was still going on that side. And you couldn't enter. There was a lot of red tape and everything, and had to before you would be allowed to go back or visit Angola. So in about 2016, 2017, we started saying, listen, we need to make plans. Obviously, the war ended. There was ways of getting into Angola through making applications for visas, and also you had to get an invitation letter from a business or a person inside Angola inviting you to come to the country. And that all changed in basically January, February 2018, when a new law was passed and visas weren't required for South African citizens anymore. So that meant that you could visit Angola without having to go through all the red tape and getting the invitation letter and so forth. And that basically transpired into us doing this trips. And it took us about 2 years to plan and put everything together. We stalled it about twice. First of all, kids with exams that didn't work out. And then last year, we just decided that we're going to bite the bullet, put 3 weeks aside and pack the vehicle and then go and visit Angola. Our vehicle that we use is a Land Rover Defender 130. It's called Nsele in Zulu, which stands for honey badger. As some would think, not the best vehicle for solo driving in Africa, but the boy hasn't dropped us too badly in the past. The vehicle is about 5 years old now. It's got 100,000 kilometers on it, and so some specifications on it. Reason being a Defender, we've toured with 110s, we've used Hiluxes, I've used Fortuner, and this vehicle suits our requirements. Space, the family, it can, the gross vehicle mass is 3.5 tons. So you can really load this vehicle to the max, and it's ideal for overlanding for us as a family. It's got a long range tank in it, so it carries about 330 liters of diesel, which gives us 1,200 kilometers range. Which is a nice distance that you can travel, and as you'll see on the presentation later on, that 1,200 kilometer distance does come in handy because of availability of diesel or fuel in Africa and in certain places, and also traveling through very isolated places. You don't have those resources or diesel freely available, and we're not, unfortunately, with these new vehicles, they're quite finicky with regards to the type of diesel that you can put into them. So bush diesel isn't really one of our favorite things that we like to put into the vehicle. It's got a water tank in there. It's got 120 liters. We use that for drinking water, cooking. We do not shower with that water. That is basically, we cook and drink from that water. It's got the electrical system. It's got a 230 watts solar power cells, and it charges a battery bank, a 210 milliamp hour battery bank, and that feeds 12 volt system as well as a 220 volt system, so we can charge 220 volt equipment if need be. We try not to do that too much, but it's got a inverter in there that we can use. Our fridge is an 8 liter National Lunar fridge, quite a big one. We tend to, when we go into these isolated areas, try and stock up with as much food as we can. And that's just the reason for that big fridge. And then the whole vehicle packed, everything stocked. We can stand in one place for about 3 weeks. We did a trip about 3 years ago where we spent just over 2 weeks in Richtersveld at Richtersberg sites, totally isolated. As some of you may have been there and know that there's no resources or facilities there. We just lived off the solar power and the food that was in the vehicle. So to get to the trip itself, Angola, as we all know, this is, most of you have maybe served there or visited it. Some of you with our passports a couple of years back. We chose to use our passports this round. Just some history. It covers about a 1.2 million square kilometers, the landmass. The capital is in Luanda. The population is 31 million people. The official language is Portuguese, which was quite a challenge for Afrikaans boytjie traveling and not gooiing the taal so lekker. But over the years, we picked up some bits and pieces of it, so that did come in handy. GDP, $208 billion. The currency is called the Kwanza, and you get about 33 Kwanzas for 1 rand. And then the best of all is the diesel price, R4.22 per litre, and that was in December. Now, it would be even less now, but I can promise you for a vehicle that gives you about 5 kilometers per litre of diesel, that R4.22 came in handy. We basically had minimal costs. The fuel was the least of our worries, the cost of the fuel. Fuel is actually freely available in Angola. They've got their own state-owned petrol company, much to sort of Sasol type of operation that they're running there, but it's state-owned. So they've got petrol stations all over. Logistics around the trip, the planning, as I said earlier on, you know, we planned quite a lot for this trip. It was because it's an unknown. The country itself isn't very tourist orientated. There's no campsites. There's no the national parks are there, but they're not really geared up for tourists coming and visiting and staying there. So it takes a lot of planning. I must say, it paid off having the time and delaying the trips. I think it might have been better for us to delay those trips twice and redoing our planning, because that prepared us more for what lay ahead in doing. Mentioned earlier on with regards to the visas, you know, you had to get that invitation letter. You had to. Was a lot of red tape around it. That obviously changed now, and you can go and visit Angola without a visa. You rock up at the border, you do your visa application there, you pay a nominal fee, and you're free to go and visit the country. The guys are actually very friendly. A big challenge always in Africa is third-party insurance. Should you be involved in an accident and then you need to cover yourself. I think that was our biggest challenge, getting that third-party insurance. Because we went in at Ruacana, they did not have the third-party insurance facilities at the border. So we had to make alternative arrangements, and you can get those applications online where you apply for third-party insurance. But at the main border posts, you do have an insurance guy selling the third party there, so you can buy it at the border, at the main border posts. Another critical point that we never sort of skimp on is medical insurance, because of the areas we went into, and it being Africa. You know, we never sort of take chances on that. So medical insurance is very important and strongly advised. Communications, I must say, I think this is the one thing where we thought we're going to struggle the most. But all over in Angola, you've got cell phone network coverage. We bought SIM cards, rekit them, loaded airtime on it. And it was like being at home. As well, you had to get reception, but most areas had reception, apart from the sort of far-flung places that we visited. We do ourselves also carry a satellite phone for use in emergency situations. It does come in handy a lot. And even on this trip as well, being a solo trip, which is not very conventional or advisable for people to do. We tend to make arrangements or inform people back home of our plans. So I had friends on this side that knew exactly what our route was, our plans, overnight stops, and all we did is in areas where we didn't have reception, cell phone reception, we used the sat phone and just SMS'd the location and checked in. So the guys could track as we progress on our route. They could keep an eye on us and know, okay, right, we were supposed to be at location A on Thursday. These guys are there. Okay, they're still fine, and so forth. So that helps a lot, just having that backup for communications. The road conditions, obviously I'm not going to allude to the road up to there and back. I'm focusing specifically on Angola. Road infrastructure is surprisingly good. I was pleasantly surprised. There's a lot of Chinese involvement, as in all other African countries. The guys were quite busy over the past couple of years, and I must say the roads are up to standard. The places where you go off-road or where the roads haven't been maintained, it is quite a challenge. And I would not advise visiting or driving those roads without a proper LDV, bucky, or SUV. Nothing less than that. You're going to damage your car, that's for sure. Food and drink, this is the one thing that we also worried about, the unknown of Angola. What was quite nice is that we realized that ShopRite has got stores in most of the major centers across the country. So they might not stock your South African known brands, but there is an international counterpart that does the job. And quality was good. We never had any issues. I think our biggest challenge was bread. They've got a very interesting idea of what they call bread, and it's not our normal pau that we get in Mozambique or our normal white bread that you can buy at Checkers. It's almost like a cake type of dough that they bake. So we didn't enjoy the bread up in Angola. We tried to support the local markets where they did have the pau, the normal buns as we would call them. And yeah, as I say, I mean, it's like you can get your food, your drink, your meat if you really want to transit, but it's there. Everything is available. With regards to payments and so forth, the money side of it, I didn't mention finances here, but we took cash with US dollars, and then we took all our credit cards with, and specifically Visa credit cards. They have got numerous banks on that side that do take cards. We did have problems with paying for fuel or food with our cards because the local guys do not activate their machines for international cards. So you can pay with a local card without any problems, but as soon as you want to use an international card, it gets declined. So you have to actually, as a visitor there, on a daily basis, or as much as possible, whenever you see an ATM, pull in and draw some cash, because otherwise you're not going to be able to pay for fuel or for your food. And I think that was one of the big challenges that we faced, was the time lost because of that. I think most of us are now used to standing in queues due to the corona pandemic. It's not much different in Angola in December. You had queues in front of those ATMs. You would wait 10 minutes to up to a half an hour to get served. And also you're limited to the amount of cash that you can withdraw on a single serving. So what we did was, I would fall in line at the ATM, stand for about 5 minutes or so, and then Aline would fall in 6, 7, 9 places behind me, and I'll get to the front, I'll draw my cash, and it amounts to about 800 rands a pop that you're allowed to withdraw from the ATM. So I'll withdraw my 800 rands, I'll fall back in behind, and then Aline would go and she'll draw her cash. And we'll do that like 3 or 4 times, just to have sufficient cash resources at hand. And as I said, that we wasted a lot of time on that. That was the biggest issue we had. With regards to using US dollars, it's just a slip of trying to get the conversion rates sorted out, and not being spoofed by these guys. We just didn't risk it. We did pay with US dollars at that one accommodation site, but for the rest of it, we used the local currency. Also, the nice thing about withdrawing from the ATMs is your bank fees. You know that you're getting the current exchange rate. You're not going to, on the black market, you get a better rate for sure. But the chance of these guys taking chances or doing you in is quite high. So it was just too risky for us. We never really do that. We try to get ATMs and withdraw money through the banks. Bank charges was nominal as well, so it wasn't very expensive to do that. And the other thing is, part of it, it links into the security side of it. We never felt unsafe at all, at any stage. Even in the queues there, you would stand, the locals were friendly, intrigued. Why are you here? Why are you visiting Angola? I mean, and trust me, there's not a lot of us around there. I'll maybe allude to it a bit later on when we got back home, which was a bit of a surprise to us. But we never had any issues, even to the point where they would allow females to jump the queue in those ATM lines to withdraw cash. So very respectful. It was unbelievable. Security with regards to us traveling alone, camping, wild camping, because that's what we did most of the time, was wild camping. We've got basic security systems, infrared sort of sensors that we put around the vehicle with alarms. But rudely being awoken up at 1 o'clock in the morning for a little rabbit bouncing past the tent wasn't our idea of fun, and we just switched them off afterwards. Just basic common sense, not letting stuff lie around outside, trying to, because we sleep in rooftop tents, you're not on the ground, you sort of better off, you know, for the guys getting to you, at least you'll feel the vehicle moving before they get to you. And we've never, across Africa, never had any issues with security or anything to like. So moving along, getting into the trip, I split it up in 3 weeks. This is the first part. Again, we did cover this. This is Riaan at the bottom. So we followed, this is all 4x4 track that you're seeing here all around here. This from Riaan to Voskunen is about 400 kilometers, which took us just over three and a half days to travel. Our average speed was between 10, if you're lucky, 20 kilometers an hour. It is slow going. Low range, 4x4, first gear, second gear, first gear, second gear. If we hit, and this whole stretch to Voskunen up to Baía dos Tigres, all the way back around to Flamingo Bay, was about an 8-day drive. And we never reached any gear higher than third gear in a Land Rover for that whole 930 kilometers. Very, very scenic, very challenging. It was, I mentioned the other day to Riaan, you know, this whole trip tested my ability in driving 4x4, the vehicle, everything was tested to the max, and then every condition manageable for the whole trip, from sand, rocks, gravel, mud, water crossings, river crossings, all of it. Grade 5 tracks that we drove on this route specifically. And the thing you need to just keep in mind is to take it slow. I mean, you need to be cognizant of the fact that you take it easy, you enjoy the scenery, and just relax, and you'll get there. Don't rush. I mean, this was, I think, the other thing that sort of we got to understand was that we planned a 3-week trip. We didn't cover a third of the country in the 3 weeks, although we traveled over 5,000 kilometers in the country. We didn't cover a third of it. We stuck to the coast for obvious reasons, wanting to explore it and see what it's all about. But the inland is just, there's many other places that we would like to go and explore in the future. So Angola is definitely going to see us again. So areas we visited, as I said, we've got Riaan at the bottom, Riaan Dam here. Most of the guys on the border wall will recall that, having to stand there, stand guard and protect that little dam there. Then we went into Iona National Park, which is this whole section here that you see here. Voskunen, which is the mouth of the Kunen River, which is the border between Namibia and Angola. And then we moved up to Baía dos Tigres, or share a bit of that later on. And then we drove around all the way up to Flamingo Bay and Namibia, which was the first major town that we reached, just driving 1,000 kilometers. Here you can see some of the pictures, and yeah, apologies, you're going to see a lot of Land Rovers. It tells a story. So just enjoy the photo. At the bottom left, you've got Ruacana Dam. They have had very good rains in the last season. And as all of us know, there was floods. Ruacana Falls were flowing for the first time in a long time. At the top there was just one of the roads that we passed through, big baobabs. I've never in my life seen so many baobabs and such big baobabs. It's almost like marula trees all over the place that we used to, like up in Limpopo and in Mozambique. Here it's just baobab trees, phenomenal. Easy going, as we said. You know, we didn't rush. We got up in the morning, made some breakfast, and then packed the vehicle up and then started driving. We have a rule: about an hour before sunset, we start looking for camp, and we start setting up camp, and just get the fires going and enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and then recap on what we saw and what happened during the day. And as you can see, the vegetation where we drove through, very sparse, a lot of mupani shrubs. Firewood is actually not too much of an issue in this area. There's a lot of dead trees, and then it made excellent fire and firewood. We enjoyed it. And just to give you an idea, on this slide specifically here, this is a type of river crossings, dry river beds that we crossed. A lot of dongas, loose rocks. This was not too steep. There was a couple of axle twisters at some of the other river crossings we did go past, but none of them had water in it. We only had one major river crossing, which will come up a bit later on, but the rest of them were all dry river beds. So easy going, really nothing technical, as I said. Low range, first gear, and you just idle through those obstacles and enjoy it. So you got to have fun. One of the other things we did do was on our research, identified water holes. Now on our mapping, I use Tracks for Africa when I do my routes. They've got some water points that they indicate, so I mark those specifically on my tracks. And most of them are there, but are not operational. This one was after about 4 days after leaving Ruacana, we came across this boy here, and it was magic. You'll see there on the top left, we topped up the water tank. We washed clothes there. We took a proper shower for about an hour and a half. Just enjoyed the water and the scenery. It was magnificent. Interesting vegetation. I mean, sorry, I'm not a fundi on plants or that, but this tree we call it the broccoli tree. That's what we call it, because it's the weirdest thing that we've ever seen in our lives. But it's all over the place. So very interesting, really enjoyed it. The slides you're seeing here now, specifically the left one, that's all shale, broken up shale. But the whole route, you actually drive over these shale mountains. So for your vehicle and your tires, it's very testing. You know, you need to let air out of your tires so that it doesn't get cut up. The vehicle does take a beating. I'll be honest with you. You know, putting together this presentation, only now that we sort of appreciate the fact that we drove there. But when we were there, it was absolute hell. It was rough going. It was tiresome testing. But now sitting here, I can't wait to go back and drove that exact route. As soon as lockdown ends, I'm going to be back there driving that route. But as you can see, it's open. There's with regards to wildlife, this area is inhabited by the Himba tribe. Quite interesting, a lot of people don't know this, but the biggest part of the Himba population is actually resides in Angola. There's only a small little portion of Himba, of the Himba tribe south of the Cunene River in Namibia. And then I, for one, thought that, you know, you only see them in Namibia and not Angola. But in Angola, this whole area is inhabited by the Himba. So rich in culture. They farm with cattle and goats. And the animals, even in these harsh conditions, looked very healthy. We didn't feel sorry for any one of the animals that we came across while driving there. With regards to things like springbuck, gemsbuck, and that's not so much, I think, because, I mean, this is subsistence living, so the animals do get hunted. We did, once we crossed into the Iona National Park at Esperinha, where it's the main entrance gate to the national park, although this is sort of much the same as the Richtersveld, where the local population has got an agreement with the government, where it's a shared conservancy. This is what this area is, and the national park, where it's dedicated only to the animals, starts at a little place called Esperinha, and then it covers the coast and north to Namibia. Again, as you can see, camp life, very, very basic. Wild camping, the vehicle with the tents. That's our little geyser there, jerry can next to the fire. So at least we have some water to shower with and wash the dishes. So yeah, really, really enjoyed it. It was a good time. Now, this vehicle, or the picture on your top left, that is a Ford Cadillac, 1958 Ford Cadillac, and he is affectionately known as Monty. Now, Monty was, his proud owner was a Portuguese gentleman or family that had him, and the reason why Monty is in such a state as we see him here is because around about 1975, Angola, there was a war, and the locals sort of gained independence, and the Portuguese people had to flee the country. Now, Monty's owners were unfortunately one of those families, and they drove their vehicle through the desert, and as you can see there's not much higher than ankle height, growing for hundreds of kilometers. Monty broke down, and he came to rest there in about 1975, and it's been there ever since. So he's become a landmark. It's one of those iconic places or pictures, things that you want to visit when you go to Angola or visit the Iona National Park. It's just an iconic landmark. So here we're still en route to Vals Cunene. You'll see the picture there with the sunset. That's actually the Cunene River. This campsite, we call it River Camp. It doesn't have an official name. It's just a place next to the river that was unbelievable. If we had to rate campsites, the top 10 in our lives, this would be number 2. Of one of the places. It's just so isolated. The scenery is amazing, breathtaking. You see the bottom left-hand slide. That's the Namib Desert. That's where it actually starts in the north of Namibia. And I'm sure all of you know how the Namib Desert forms, but it's basically just erosion sand that's been taken down by the Cunene River, flows through with the ocean currents, washes up on the beach, the wind blows it up, and it blows it into the desert. So this is like a circle of life for the desert, this river. It just feeds and takes and feeds and takes. Amazingly, when we got to the bottom, my daughter Layla actually was very concerned, and I must admit myself as well. if we were going to be able to actually get out from that campsite to back to the top, because it's about a 600-meter drop from the bottom of the river up to the top there. So it was quite a nerve-wracking experience, but we just deflated the tires and gave it gas and made the best of it and made it out. So and we lived to tell the tale. As you can see, the sunsets, it's amazing. It's just, we do these trips with our kids just to share nature and family time and really appreciate, you know, what we have and what life where you are. It just really makes you think twice about what you do and then how you live, and then appreciate the little things. We had a little family there of, and now I'm thinking Afrikaans and wanted to talk English, suikerbekkies. But there was a male, female suikerbekkie. There's a little tree on the right-hand side. Now, about 3 weeks after, well, 2 weeks after we were here, the rain started, heavy rain started in the north of Angola, and we could see the rivers flooding. And when we got back home, the Kunene River was actually in flood. And this whole section where we sit would have been covered completely with water, because this is like a bottleneck where the river just tunnels through this rocky outcrops on either side. So it must have been amazing to be there and just witness the power of nature. Again, I said earlier on, you know, managing your tire pressures, did a lot of that. It's something that we quite disciplined about, because, I mean, if we lose tires in isolated areas, it becomes a problem. The vehicle itself, we always carry 2 spare tires. It's got a ARB compressor on there as well, so we can inflate and deflate our tires as required. It makes it easy to operate. And again, just that bottom right picture that you can see there, you know, it's just the vast expanses. There's nothing there. It is, you know, we stopped there and we had a chat, and we just said to ourselves, you know, why are we here? Why do people come here? And I mean, that those tracks are quite they're driven. The place is very a lot of people visit the park, which was quite surprising. So this is still on the way to Fos Kunene there at the bottom left. That's the actual little outpost. It's a military outpost, and once you go through the border, the entrance gate at Esperinia, you need to then report to these police officials at Fos Kunene, where they check your passports and your paperwork and everything, and only then are you allowed to go onto the beach and drive. The picture on the right-hand side, that is the mouth of the mighty Kunene River. I have an infatuation with rivers. My family, not so much, but I don't care. I drive a Land Rover, so I decide where I go. And I always try to visit these sort of iconic landmarks. The mouth of the Orange River, the mouth of the Zambezi, the mouth of the Olifants River, or the Limpopo. And this was another one, the mouth of the Kunene River. We did plan to reach the mouth of, or the Congo River on the north, but time caught up with us. So that's another one for my bucket list, is to pack the family up and then take them with to the mouth of the Congo River. So we finally reached the ocean, and as you can see by the tracks there, the beach, there's a lot of vehicles driving on the beach. This area is also called the Acre of Death. And I think most of you have followed the guys on Voetspore, Jan Baardenhorst and them, and have seen that iconic little mistake they made by traveling the Acre of Death and being caught by the tides and having to pull the vehicles up onto the dunes and then trying not to lose their vehicles. And then luckily they made it out. A lot of other people are less fortunate, and then lives have been lost on this stretch of beach. We just, again, as I say, that my inquisitiveness, wanting to see these places, we just had to go and visit this place, a place called Baía dos Tigres, which is a little peninsula that was quite a thriving fishing village. Big fishing factories where the Portuguese lived, and they had a church there. There was an airfield. Fish oil was made, and all that. And then one fateful night in 1962, there was a big storm that sort of washed a part of that peninsula away, and it became an island, and the people on the island were trapped, and they had to actually be flown out, rescued by airplane to get off the island. And again, this is one of the places that it's almost the same as Kolmanskop in Lüderitz in Namibia. These old buildings are there, and nature has just taken over. It's one of the places I still want to go and visit. And you have guys that do trips with boats from this location. They take you over to the island, and you spend the day there taking pictures and enjoying the views. But normally what would happen is you would travel this piece of beach from this area where we are now at the bottom of the Acre of Death, where you enter the Acre of Death, is about a 80-kilometer stretch along the coast. Now, the reason it's called the Acre of Death is because you can only travel this section on full moon, and well, a day before and a day after full moon or new moon, because that's when the tide sort of draws back just enough to open a piece of beach about 6 meters wide. And that allows you the space to drive this 80 kilometers. It takes you about 4, maybe 6 hours, depending on the conditions of the beach. A lot of soft sand, not easy going, and definitely not something that we as solo travelers wanted to experience. But definitely want to one day go and do it with one of the guides that know this this track or the section. And it's just, again, one of those iconic things or bucket list items that guys overlanding want to tick off, and it's, I promise you, well worth the visit. Just a lot of wind, cold, the elements are totally against you, but it's amazing to stand there and then take it in and appreciate the beauty of nature. And again, as you can see there, I mean, camping totally in the middle of nothing. It's just gives your soul a rest. So seeing here is I spoke earlier on about the river crossing. So this was the only river crossing that we did, but also the biggest one. And normally what we would do in off-road or 4x4ing overlanding is you would walk the river first, the crossing, to determine, you know, what the conditions are, the strength of the current, how deep it is. And we stopped on this side. There was a checkpoint on the other side. There was a gentleman, and he just said, come across. And I said, okay, I'll walk across. So I went over, had a chat to him, and he explained to me, listen, you know, there's been vehicles crossing here, 4 vehicles exactly before me on that same day. I walked across, checked the current, everything. And yeah, the water was about 1 meter deep. Was flowing, but not so strong that I would lose my footing. And yeah, compared to, you know, the height of the Land Rover, more than doable. And although we were very stressed in this section, I mean, we took the normal precautions, windows open, seat belts off, got all our documentation and sat phone and then food and water with us in a backpack. Should something go wrong, you ditch the vehicle and swim and hope for the best. You know, said a prayer beforehand, but made it across, and it's one of those memorable things for me as well. That specific spot. Again, water always you come across it, not always a guarantee that you will have some. This is a solar powered pump that the government has put in place for the Himba tribes, where they would come and let their cattle or animals drink, and crystal clear. And again, ideal opportunity to take a shower in the middle of nowhere. So finally, we reached a place called Flamingo Bay. It's a South African operator that settled there in the early 90s, and over the years has built up this little fishing village lodge that you can go and visit. And this was one of the main guys that you would contact before the visas were dropped, because old Rico Saku was renowned for being the person to contact, because he would issue you with that invitation letter that you would need for applying for your visa. But you would have to then also firstly come and spend a couple of nights with him, and spend some money there and catch some fish and have some rest and enjoy it. And after that, you can travel wherever you want to in Angola. But that was the agreement between Rico and the guys that went and visited him before that. But as you can see, very scenic. Actually, the beaches very polluted. Surprisingly close to rivers or to the towns. A lot of plastic and shoes and rubbish and nonsense. But yeah, luckily this part of it wasn't too bad. From Flamingo Bay, we headed up to a little place called Namibi, also driving along the coast, and this area is just Angola for guys that enjoy fishing. I would recommend that you, or highly recommend that you go and visit Angola. Fish life there is prolific. The abundance, the size of fish, the quality of your fishing experience is just something that you will never forget.